If you're watching this, it is likely that you are new to exercise and this is one of the first days of your new program. So first of all, welcome. I am Emily and I will be your coach. I'm going to give you a crash course on all of the basic movements that you'll be using in the first couple of weeks of your program. We're going to focus on lower body for this video, and we'll add an upper body one in another series. So all you need for what we're going to do today is a set of dumbbells, maybe. We might not even get into those today, but just have them on hand just in case, and a soft surface such as a yoga mat or just a little bit of space cleared out in your living room or wherever you're doing this from. So first thing that we're going to learn is the glute bridge. Nice gentle movement. So we're going to start by coming down to the floor. I'm going to do this sideways so that you can properly see me. So we're going to come down onto the floor. Our heels are going to be directly in front of our bum, and our heels are going to be flat on the floor. We're also going to put our palms flat on the floor, and I want you to pretend from here that you have a magnet, and that magnet is going to be at the bottom of your rib cage and at the top of your hip bone. So you're going to allow those magnets to kind of pull together, which is going to activate your belly, kind of like if you were going to get punched in the belly. So don't think of this as sucking in, think about it as a tightening. So hip bone, rib cage towards the hip bone. From here, you're going to push through your heels, come to full extension of the hips. So the hips are going to raise as much as you can. Careful not to overarch, so we're not creating an uncomfortable arch. We're just coming up so that our hips are at full extension. We're pushing through our heels and our palms are on the ground. So this is called a glute bridge, or you might hear this as a hip bridge. So we can do this a couple different ways where we hold it like we're doing right now. So come on down and relax. So we can either hold it or you can kind of rep this motion out. Now the important thing to do and to notice is at the very top, you're going to squeeze your bum together at the top of the movement, and then you're going to relax when you come back down to the floor. So hips come up to full extension, pushing through the heels, shoulders are remaining on the floor, and you're coming back down to the floor. So take a second to give this a try. Let's do a set of 5 together. So I'll let you get on the floor and we will do a set of 5. Here we go. For 1, 2, 3, 4, great job, and 5. Make sure you're getting those hips to full extension. Good, come on back down, and let's come into a standing position. Now, that might not be enough time for you to feel like you really have mastered the movement, so feel free to pause the video here, practice that a little bit more before moving on. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do air squat. Now, this is an important move for us to learn. I'm going to get you to grab a chair. I'm going to grab my chair. All right, so I have my chair. We're going to start our air squat by using the chair as a little bit of a teaching tool. So feet should be about shoulder width apart, or you can think about lining those feet up with the legs of the chair. Typically the legs of the chair are at a good distance apart. I want you to just ever so slightly point the toes outward, and we're going to break our movement down into 3 different sections. So I'm going to turn this way just for a moment. So finding your hip bone with your fingers, I want you to pretend that you are, how can I put this? That you put a lasso around your waist and you're just tilting the pelvis back ever so slightly. So this movement right here, so from here to here, that is our step 1. So we're gonna go to step 1. And then step 2, we're going to think about continuing to push our hips back and our knees out. So hips come back, knees come out, and now here I am, my arms are gonna be up nice and high, and I'm just above parallel, okay? So what would that look like if I was coming into a seated position? I'm gonna tilt my hips back, so pelvic tilt, going towards the wall, or if I had that lasso, pulling me back towards the wall. I'm gonna bring my arms up, and then I'm gonna start to sit down or try to find that seat. So my hips are going back, my knees are going out, and I can feel the seat. So here I am, I'm just above parallel. Now, to finish that squat, you're gonna come all the way down to the bottom of your squat position, which is the bottom of parallel. Now, depending on your flexibility. You might not be able to get down all the way without your heels coming off the ground. That's why we'll use the chair, and we can modify with a chair squat until we're feeling really comfortable. So, once again, we're gonna start with the chair squat. So we're gonna do 5 squats to the chair, and then we're gonna switch it up and do 5 full body squats where we go below parallel each time. So let me get the chair situated here. So again, lining up, your feet are a little bit wider than hip width, your toes are pointing out ever so slightly, hands are on the hips, rib cage down towards the hip bone, remembering how we did the magnet in our glute bridge. It's the exact same for this movement. So rib cage towards the hip bone. And we're gonna go into stage 1, which is pushing the pelvis back to the wall behind you. If I had a lasso, I'm pulling it back. That's 1. Now for 2, my knees are gonna come out while my hips continue to go back, and I'm coming down until I just touch that chair, and then I'm coming back up to a stand to full extension, locking out the hips, locking out the knees, squeezing the glutes. So here we go for 1, 2, good, 3. Now a proper squat is a challenging thing to get. It takes a lot of practice. So just be patient with it. If you don't feel like you're doing it properly the first time, that's okay. All right, so now that we got that part, that was part A. For some of you, we might just be sticking with part A for the next little while until you feel like you can increase the depth of your squat. But if you feel like you can, let's go into the final part, or the second part of this. So all teaching tips for the beginning of the position are the same. Rib cage towards the hip bone, belly nice and tight, lasso around the waist, pulling the hips back to the back of the room. So we're gonna go into step 1. Now our knees are gonna go out while our hips continue to go back. 2, and now we're gonna go all the way down into the bottom of our squat, which is here, number 3, then back to 2, and then back to 1. And that is how we do our air squat. So let's do 5 reps of that together. So I'll turn this way for this time, and we're gonna go into stage 1, 2, 3, 2, and 1. Good. 1, 2, 3, 2, and 1. Great job. Let's just do 1 more. Hips go back. 1, 2, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. So we got 2 done already. Now we're going to talk about, continuing on with the knee dominant stuff, we're going to talk about our lunge. This is something else that you will see in your initial movement programs, and you may need a little bit of support for this one. So if you have a chair, that's a great tool that you can use at home, or you can hold onto the wall or a dowel or whatever you have. So I want you to pretend that you have a railroad track. So 2 parallel lines running the length of your living room or whatever your workout space is. If you really wanted to, you could take these on the ground. These feet do not leave that line, okay? So when we do our lunge, we're going to take just a half of a step forward. My feet remain in a parallel position, although one is now a little bit more in front of the other, before our back foot drops to the ground. So we're gonna drop the knee to the floor. I'm keeping my 90-degree angle, pushing through the heel and coming back to my standing position. Again, half step forward, bending the knee. My shoulders are staying down and back. My rib cage is towards my hip bone. Now, common error that we see quite often with our lunges is people are stepping too far and they're like overstepping their lunge, and it really doesn't look very good, and it increases the risk of getting injured. So it really is just a half of a step forward, dropping the back knee to the ground just until the back knee kisses the ground, and then you're coming back to your full extension of your standing position. So if you're a little bit unsteady and a little bit wobbly, you can do this by holding onto a chair. So same thing, think of that railroad track, taking a step forward with the right leg to start, left knee dips to the floor, come back to a stand, and then back to our starting position. Good. Now, so that is the squat. Now, another movement very similar to the squat, but different in one particular way, is the split squat. This is a great movement. It is challenging, trust me, but super beneficial. So, same way that we set up for our front squat, our lunge. I don't know what I just said, but I'm talking about split squats and lunges. So the same way that we set up for our lunge, that's how we're gonna set up for the split squat. So we're gonna keep all those teaching points intact. So rib cage towards the hip bone, and we're gonna have the belly nice and tight, back is nice and safe. From here, we're gonna have the legs on our railroad track, so keeping the parallel. And you're gonna take a step forward with the left foot, half step forward. That back knee is dropping to the ground. So the knee touches the ground, kisses the ground, and then comes back up to a stand. But unlike the squat, or the lunge, sorry, unlike the lunge, we don't step back to our starting position. We just rep out the movement in this position. So this is a split squat. It differs from the lunge in that we do not step back to our starting position. All right, so we have gone over the glute bridge, the air squat, and the lunge so far. Now we're going to learn the Romanian deadlift and the good morning. So take this opportunity to grab a little drink if you need it and come on back and we'll go through our final 2 exercises for today. If you have one, I'm going to get you to grab a broomstick or a dowel, hockey stick, whatever you have, just a nice long stick will do. We're going to put this on our backs. So how you're gonna line up this dowel is with the back of your head. So the back of your head's going to be touching. For me, it's right where my ponytail should be. So it's right in the middle of my skull. And it's running down the natural center line of your body. So if you can read between the lines of what the natural center line of your body would be, that's where this dowel is placed. So shoulders also making contact with the dowel. Now from here, we're going to start to learn the hinge. So what the hinge is it's the initial movement that we do when we do most of our deadlifting or any hip dominant movement. So again, turning to the side. So from here, I'm going to pretend I'm one of those little birdies that dips into the fountain. So I have a slight bend in my knee, my rib cage is down towards the hip bone, my belly is nice and tight, and I'm allowing my hips to go back. And then you're coming back to the top of your movement to full extension. So hips come back, slight bend in the knees. The hips are what is doing all of the work in this position. So you can see, I never lose contact with the dowel. So slight bend in the knee, my head's against the dowel is in between the natural center line of my body, and at no point am I losing contact. So I'm not squatting, I'm not bending, I am hinging. So my hips are going forward and my hips are going back. So this is called the hip hinge. This is also called a Romanian, or a good morning. We often will do this as a warm-up exercise. So I want everyone to try this. So just to see how I got this dowel in the proper position, depending on the mobility of your shoulders, you might not be able to hold like I was, you might have to go a little bit higher. So this is the position that we're holding it in. And from here, the back of our head is touching, as is the tailbone or the natural center line of our body, hinging the hips, so pushing the hips back. Back is staying nice and flat. And let's do a set of 5. That's 4, 3, 2, and 1 more. Perfect. Great job, you guys. That is fantastic. So that is the good morning, teaching us the basics of the hinge. Now we're gonna build on that a little bit more in the fact that we're going to add a Romanian deadlift. So a Romanian deadlift is when we start at the top and work our way down. We don't come all the way to the floor unless you have really superb flexibility. And our legs remain relatively straight with just a nice light bend in the knee. So to properly set for our deadlift, if you're doing this at home, it's likely I have you doing it with a band. Maybe I have you starting with a dowel or a dumbbell or a kettlebell. So for our deadlift, you're going to have your hands positioned directly outside of your body, so about thumb width from the hip. Shoulders are down and back, rib cage is towards the hip bone. Now I want you to pretend that you still have the dowel on your back, and that's the same movement that we're doing, but this time we have a weight in our hands, or dumbbell, kettlebell, band, what have you. So shoulders down and back. We're gonna push the hips to the back of the room, and then come back to full extension. Slight bend in the knees. Hips go to the back of the room, come to full extension. And I will switch to do this on the side, so you can see from the side view. So hips to the back of the room. And what comes forward first is our hips. So we don't want our shoulders to rise before our hips rise. So think about the hips, that's what's coming forward, and our shoulders are following it. So what would that look like with a dumbbell? I'm going to show you. So if we are using a dumbbell instead of our dowel, I'm going to hold the dumbbell the same way that I just did with the dowel. So 2 dumbbells in front. Reminder, this is a Romanian deadlift or a straight leg deadlift. This is not a standard deadlift. So from here, slight bend in the knees, and the same thing as before, thinking about having that dowel running down the center line of our body. Hips are going to the back of the room. My shoulders are staying down and back. My hips are coming forward. So this movement is all in the hips. Want to make sure the hips are being pushed forward before the shoulders come up. So hips forward. So what do I mean by that? Because I know I'm just talking and you're probably like, what are you talking about? If I'm to bring my shoulders up first, this is what it would look like, okay? So instead of doing my shoulders first, the first thing that moves, and I want you to watch my body, is my hips. Hips, and then the shoulders will follow. So this is a Romanian deadlift or a straight leg deadlift. A really great variation. You will definitely see it in your program at some point. So for this video, that is the basis of all the lower body movements that you'll likely be seeing in your workouts. In the next couple of days, I am going to add an upper body video with the same information, so stay tuned. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. And thanks for working out with me, and I hope you enjoy your program. See you soon.